I landed by the thinnest of margins on Ja Morant, and I am pointing to one Chris Paul at the age of 36 and what he's currently doing for the Phoenix Suns, a team with the best record in the league right now. And I think, although I really struggled in terms of Ja's physique, I think what Ja has uniquely under wraps at this point in his career that's very, very impressive is understanding the pace of the game. He absolutely can give you a Russell Westbrook type of explosion moment when he gets to the paint. But I, again, think back, Perk, to that win versus the Warriors to get in the play-in last year. And on paper, you may have not have been impressed by his stats, but if you watch that game, the way that he held onto the ball, dictated the pace, facilitated, took shots in spots that were valuable, and even the way he shot the three ball, which was not something that he did prolifically last year, he understands the pace and the speed of the game. And we know change of speed, change of direction are like very fundamental things in the game of basketball. And so at his age, at the point guard spot with so many young talents around him, to have a grasp on that is so impressive. And I think he will be able to change his game as his body and athleticism may change down the road.
Guess what? I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad at you.
It's
And
tough.
you know how I feel about Ja. But look, I'm gonna say this. I'm not taking nobody over Giannis Antetokounmpo, okay? I just can't.
Okay.
And for the simple fact that I understand that he's 27, but we have at least 8 more years of Giannis doing what he is doing right now at this high level. When you look at his physical build, right? It reminds me of LeBron James and Karl Malone. Like, they have that body frame and they have that type of mentality and they have that type of physical presence that they could do this for an extended period of time. And so looking at Giannis only being 27 years old, he still has 7 years max, in my opinion, in his prime, but we don't know what prime is no more. Like, LeBron James has exceeded prime. Like, it used to be 27 to the age of 34, but now LeBron James is saying, no, prime is what you put into your body. And we all know how disciplined Giannis Antetokounmpo is. Now, you know I can't leave this subject without giving Ja his flowers. Now, Ja Morant, when you talk about his ceiling for as far as his career, it's Jordan-esque. And I'm going to tell you why. Because think about it. When Michael Jordan came into the league in 1984, no one expected him to pan out the way that he did. And when he came in with Bird and Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson, and then all of a sudden he rose to the top as the number 3 pick. Ja Morant, the number 2 pick. Every year he's getting better. Every year he's opening eyes. Every year he's shocking the world. He's doing things and he's winning in a small market like in Memphis, and he's doing it at a high level. So just think about this last year. Last year, we was like, Ja is really good. This year, we're talking about actually putting him in the MVP conversation. He should be an all-star starter. He should make an all-NBA team if he don't get hurt. So when I look at it, I don't want people to overreact like it's so far-fetched. The guy's only 22 years of age, and he's going to continue to get better.
Perk, you start throwing out Jordan and just get ready to tell some folks to carry on and that you said what you said. I would rein it back off Jordan just a little bit and go with more of a Steph type of ceiling. And of course, Steph's career is still being written. But when I think of these certain everyman je ne sais quoi, in that these are not guys that are towering at 6'8", big behemoths and physical beasts and imposing presences the way Giannis is, but I look at what Ja has been able to do, and I definitely think he's going to be a signature face of a generation. Like, you look at his social following, and Gen Z loves him. I love him. I'm not Gen Z. Like, he's tremendous. And so I do think that he has the unique ability to create another shift in the game. And yes, he is a product of some of what we've seen from Steph, although he doesn't shoot the ball that way. But this influx of smaller and physical stature guards that have incredible quickness, are able to elevate quickly off the ground as well in terms of that bounce. I feel you on the MJ. I'm leaning back and pulling it to a little bit of a Steph right now because I think the branding is there. We love Welcome to the Dark Side, his whole campaign, but it's not far-fetched to me.
But think about this for a second, Monica. I'm just saying, think about when Jordan was drafted. Nobody thought that Jordan would be in the conversation of being the GOAT, okay? It was two other guys that were taken in front of him. Jordan had to work to get where he was, and he reached the level of greatness. So you're telling me watching the way that Ja Morant is climbing, it's the ceiling is unlimited. This is a guy that has proven us that he can.
Hold on, Perk, because we're gonna run out of time. But wait, Perk, this would be my only question to you on the pushback. Jordan blocked guys straight up over the course of his era. Like, are you saying that you think Ja has the ability to be that dominant of a presence and keep guys from getting to the ultimate prize in NBA? I just think that the league right now, there's such a dearth of talent. I don't know if he will do that.
Well, listen, let me tell you something, okay? First of all, I'm not worrying about running out of time because I sat here for 30 minutes and listened to Ryan Clark and Dominique Foxworth talk about good times, the heat of the night, and now we're talking about basketball. So we got to have our moment. Yeah, so we got to have our moment. So at the end of the day, is what I'm telling you is when I'm looking at Ja at 22. Okay, we look at Steph. Steph is towards the end of his career, right? I ain't saying it's going to be over soon, but when you look at all the superstars that are in front of him, except for Giannis, I think that Ja could have a better career and overtake and block a Luka. I think he could block a Devin Booker. I think he could block a Donovan Mitchell. Like, when I'm looking at this guy right now, we already talking about, hey, did the Pelicans make a mistake and not drafting him number one? When you start to move in that direction, that means you're doing certain things. You're doing special things. So I'm going to leave it at that. But at the end of the day, Charlie, I know we got to go. But to answer your question, if I'm starting a franchise, I'm taking Giannis, not only over Ja, but everybody else in the NBA.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.